YouTube, Facebook, and Tumblr fans. Welcome to the first fan-voted verses of Season 2. And what a better way to start this off with the first musical discussion of the season, dealing with the two most profound bassists in metal history, practically, Robert Trujillo and Jason Newsted, both gaining their footing, both coming into prominence and rising into the limelight with Metallica when they joined in the late 80s and early 2000s in the case of Trujillo. Now, both of these bassists had their origins. Jason Newsted started out with the band entitled Flotsam and Jetsam. I believe it was his band. I'm not sure if it was his band or not. And Robert Trujillo gained his early success through Suicidal Tendencies in the late 80s and early 90s. Now, when this first started out, and Metallica's case, for Jason Newsted, he got hazed heavily. He was basically not fitting in and not having any fun at all. He enjoyed being in the band, but he didn't really get a chance to express creatively what his vision was for the band. And, you know, if you listen to And Justice for All, you will obviously hear a significant undertone on the bass. There is practically no bass, except for the thumping you hear in the background on some of the songs. Now, some songs, like I said in my original review of that album, do have a lot more bass than other songs. That's not to say that the album is bad, per se, with bass tracks, but it could have been improved, especially if they remaster it. Now, speaking of remasters, Ozzy Osbourne, Crazy Train, Blizzard of Oz, Diary of a Madman, his early albums, 2002. Where do you think Megadeth got their ideas for the remasters? Actually, no, I don't know if that's the case, but it might be a huge coincidence because Ozzy Osbourne, in 2002, went back into the studio and re-recorded the bass tracks with Robert Trujillo, ironically enough. And because he was having a little bit of an issue with the bassist at the time, I believe it was Bob Daisley, so, or at least that was one of them. So he went in to spite him and re-recorded the bass tracks. Now, they sounded completely off. Robert Trujillo has an interesting way of playing the bass. It just, you know, you can definitely hear an emphasis on just the crisp sound of the bass. Now, it kind of angered me listening to Blizzard of Oz with the new bass tracks because I was so used to hearing, I believe it was Bob Daisley on bass, I was so used to hearing the original tone that this did upset me, and I did look out and seek out the original format. Now, they did remaster Blizzard of Oz and all the early material with the original bass intact, but this definitely wasn't a great way for Robert Trujillo to come into the limelight, so to speak. But on the other hand, if they did remaster And Justice for All, Metallica could fall into the same trap by using, you know, Robert Trujillo to replay the bass. And Jason Newsted also has an interesting way of playing the bass, as he uses a pick. Now, this came to prominence in the early eras of the Black Album, when he had to have a wall of foam in between him and the recording material, the recording equipment, because it was using, you could hear the pick way too much. You could hear the pick actually strumming against the bass guitar, and it was interfering with the recording process. So it is a very interesting way of playing, mind you, but then again, they both do have their merits. So, like I said, Jason was in his band Flotsam and Jetsam before being picked up by Metallica after the tragic death of Cliff Burton, which affected even Newsted greatly, just hearing about it. He said he read it in the paper and just lost it. So, you know, it's that clear in the Metallica Behind the Music. So, you know, check that out if you have the time. It's pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting watch. So, with Jason Newsted, though, his influence on the band definitely came to fruition with the release of the Black Album because of the beginning bass track in the song entitled My Friend of Misery, which Jason actually wrote, or at least the bass part of it. So he actually got to have his own influence in there. And in various interviews with James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, he actually wanted the Black Album to be a little bit more reminiscent of Justice. So anyone who wants to blame Jason for the so-called selling out of Metallica, don't, because he actually wanted to make a faster, more progressive Black Album than what we actually got. Yet James and the rest of the band wanted to go a more simplistic route, so they didn't really use much of what Jason had to offer, bar the My Friend of Misery. So, getting into that, though, we have, on the other hand, Robert Trujillo working in Suicidal Tendencies, which is, you know, you can probably say is not a well-known band compared to Metallica. I mean, now they're well-known. A lot of people know about Suicidal Tendencies, but when it comes to the limelight, when it comes to metal fame, Metallica definitely steal the show. Whereas Suicidal Tendencies started off as more of a punk rock band and progressively got thrashier and more metal, basically, in their career, in terms of their career and writing style. So Jason Newsted, I would probably say, is one of the most underrated bassists of all time, particularly because of the hazing that Metallica put him through. Now, I do like the distorted production of Newsted, the new band that's coming out on heavy metal music and his EP Metal, and I do like his vocals, and that's another thing. Jason Newsted also added backing vocals to the band, which hadn't really been heard in the Cliff Burton era. I don't know if Cliff Burton actually sang on anything, now that I think about it. Now, once 2000 rolled around, though, and they had already basically hit their stride with the recording and everything, and, you know, sold out, and Jason wanted to take some time off to pursue some time with his side project, Echo Brain. Like I said, he has a lot of side projects. This was the side project of the year. It didn't really last too long, but, you know, something really drastic happened, something that would affect Metallica, would affect the band for the next 3 or 4 years. So I'll let Lars explain it to you.
He fucking left the band! He fucking left the band!
Okay, thanks for that, Lars. Anyways, after that pivotal point in Metallica's history, they were going through a very rough patch, with James being in rehab for alcoholism and just a bunch of angry topics, which will lead us into the next album of Metallica's discography that really didn't have a profound bassist. Yes, Rob Trujillo actually joined the band in early 2003, late 2003, somewhere in there, and recorded his footage for the Saint Anger videos, but he didn't actually record on the album itself. Instead, that position was filled by producer Bob Rock, which most of us would later learn to hate because of what he did to Metallica's reputation, specifically on this album. It sucks. Point in case. And the only album that can really rival its suckage was Lulu. And that's not even a full-fledged Metallica album. It has Lou Reed's stamp of disapproval on it, or approval, mind you. But, you know, that being said, though, this would be the last album with Bob Rock. So the next album they would bring in Rick Rubin for Death Magnetic. Now, when it comes to these two bassists in terms of raw technique and sheer capability, I would probably have to go with Jason. I don't know why, but I really do think that he's a better fit for Metallica even now, but that's not to knock on Rob Trujillo's, you know, capabilities as a bassist. But I am glad things did turn out the way they did, and Death Magnetic was a great album, but I do believe that Jason Newsted did bring a lot more to the band. And just, you know, with the chemistry and with his vocals on live concerts. So for me, it's probably going to be Jason, but I do still like Rob Trujillo's just technicality and capability and everything that he adds to the band, and to Suicidal Tendencies for that matter. The irony of that is, though, Rob Trujillo was in Suicidal Tendencies, and then he went to Ozzy Osbourne and re-recorded those bass lines, but guess where Jason Newsted went after the failure of Echo Brain? That's right, Ozzy Osbourne. Neither of them recorded a new album with Ozzy, so it's kind of, you know, weird, because Metallica and Ozzy basically just traded bassists. So it's kind of a funny little tidbit of information. But with that, I would choose Jason Newsted over Rob Trujillo. That's just my personal preference. So what do you guys think? Do you like the technicality that Rob Trujillo brings to the band, or do you like the raw personality, vocal ability, as well as, you know, the interesting playing style that Jason brings to whatever band he's in? I shouldn't necessarily limit this to Metallica. So comment in the comment section below, because where else would you comment, and let me know. So this is Midnight Strike 3625. Keep calm and rock on.